Please don't buy this land. I've worked in development for the last 8 years and I keep seeing the same sort of land come up time and time again. I've let it go and I haven't said anything, but it's about time that somebody raises awareness, because if doing this video I can stop one person from spending tens of thousands of pounds by buying the wrong land, then it's definitely worth doing. So who am I and why should you be listening to me? Well, I'm Tom Hoskin and I've worked in the property development sector for the past 8 years, supporting small and medium-sized developers on small development schemes. I've then assisted housing associations on delivering 100% affordable schemes, and I've also worked at the largest house builder in the UK, developing tens of thousands of properties each and every year. So I'd say that I'm pretty well versed and pretty well educated when it comes to land acquisition and property development structures. Now in this video, we're going to be focusing on what sort of land not to buy. So if we just click over here, we'll see the land in question. So time and time again, I see these sorts of properties coming up in auctions. And the question is, if they're so popular, then why are they coming up? Now here we've got a couple that are sold prior, and these ones are only £6,000. So I'd say these people got off lightly, but I've seen other ones that have gone up to 20, 30 plus £1,000. And to buy something of 20, 30,000 pounds to find that it's not of any value is, in my opinion, heartbreaking, and it's a waste of time and a waste of energy. And a lot of these times I actually think that it should be illegal, because selling something to uneducated individuals that want to get into a self-build, for instance, they might look at a plot like this and go, oh wow, I've always wanted to build my forever home and look how cheap the land is. So if we can buy the land cheap and then we can build a house, then fantastic, that's our forever home. But a lot of the times these people aren't educated property developers, property investors, and they're just individuals wanting to find a small plot of land to build their forever home. Now, a lot of the times these pieces will have development potential on them. And again, I just don't think that it's good marketing practice. When a site definitely doesn't have development potential, the argument from the agents is that, well, actually it might have development potential in the future, depending on the reports and the surveys, etc. But usually pretty easy you can find out whether a site has planning and development potential. Now, what we usually find with these sorts of land is usually it's contaminated land, or it's sites with large levels of constraints, i.e. it might be in flood zone 3, it might be in greenbelt, it might have a whole host of different things to prevent development potential on the site. If we just take this site here, for example, we've got Bidborough Ridge, Tunbridge Wells, Kent, TN4OUU. So I've loaded this up into Landstack, and we can see here that this is the route here. And if I just click on, I believe it's this site here, and an easy way to just check this is if we just go into titles, we can see that it's all split off. So this is all title split into their individual plots. So we can see here any other typical land, obviously there's no need to title split. So this is what typical land looks like, and anything that's broken down such as this, it's quite easy to know that this is the site in question. So if we just have a little look as to the rationale behind this. So let's have a little look at any planning applications. So lo and behold, no planning applications have been taking place on this site. Is the area allocated? No. Is it in a SHLA? No. Is there any constraints that we should be aware of? Okay, so here we go. So if we just zoom out, we can see here that it's in a greenbelt area. So this comes back to what I was saying earlier, that the sites in greenbelt, it's all been split off. And what I essentially believe to have happened here is we talk a lot about character of an area, and we can see here that all along this road there's obviously rows of properties that have been built and developed out. However, on the other side of the road there's then that protection of greenbelt, and so development here is very, very unlikely. And so what the landowner's done is they've thought, okay, well, I've got a rural piece of land here that's outside the settlement boundary, that's in greenbelt, and so the development potential is very low. However, if I split them all off into self-builds, I might be able to sell off each plot for much more than the land itself is worth. So let's say this plot of land, I'm not too sure on the overall size of it, but let's say, for instance, that it's worth £50,000 just as rural agricultural land. But by splitting it off and selling each individual plot as development potential, you might be able to sell some plots off for £5,000, £10,000, even up to £20,000, £30,000 as I've seen before. Then straight away, if you're selling each one individually off like that, you're going to create far more value from that land than you would as just being sold for agricultural purposes. However, this comes back to what I was saying earlier about the ethics, because if selling something like this and saying, oh, it has development potential, maybe one day the green belt will get released, or maybe one day you'll be able to build a house. Is that ethically correct, and should that be allowed? Or are people's arguments, well, it's free market, they should be doing their own due diligence? Now, I think as a property professional, it's not fair and it's not something that's right. And so that's why I wanted to do a quick video today, just to raise awareness, to try and help anyone that's looking into doing something like this, to try and avoid the pitfalls of buying land such as this. Now, I just wanted to raise another quick example that we can look at now too. If we just click back here, the next one that I wanted to raise is this site. So Rushton, Bunningtonford, SG9 OSQ. So I've got it loaded up here. And a quick way to tell, again, if it's that land is the titles. Again, we can see all the other land around hasn't been split up, and anything that looks like this, you know it's the land in question. Now, if you just want to double check, you can quickly use a reference point, i.e. let's use these kind of 3 triangular pieces here. And again, we can see that these are the land that's sold along here. So let's just have a quick look. Are there any planning applications on the site? No. Is the site allocated for development? No. Is it in a SHLA or anything else? No. Are there any constraints on the site? Okay, so there's no clear constraints on the site. We can see flood zone 3 here, which would be an impact on your development. And we can see, I'm assuming this is a conservation area. Yep. So although it's beyond the settlement boundary, there are no clear environmental constraints, which is a good thing. It means that there's no issues, unlike the first site that we came across. However, just because there's no environmental constraints doesn't mean there aren't other constraints that we need to think about. And one of the key things that I wanted to highlight here is access. It doesn't look like there's any clear access to the site. And it's all well and good, for instance, if you were to buy this plot of land here, well, where's the road access so you can access that plot of land? How are you going to, if you were to get planning permission in the future, in 10, 20 years time, for instance, well then how is the road going to be developed? Who's going to manage and maintain that road? What legal rights do you have to access your land, going over other parties, their own land? And then how your construction team going to come in and actually develop your self-build property in the future if you were to able to overcome all these additional obstacles. Now, it's really important to look at the environmental constraints and also your legal constraints and the rights of access that you have when you're looking at a plot of land like this. That's why it's good to get a good solicitor on board or a good architect on board, or equally just speak to a local property developer such as myself that would be able to give you further guidance, because I've seen too many people buy plots of land like this and lo and behold they have kind of big visions and big dreams and they end up just spending thousands of pounds and never get anywhere with it. And so by doing this video, if I can help just one person avoid making this mistake, making this pitfall, then for me it's definitely worthwhile. Now, I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Landstack. Without Landstack software, we wouldn't have been able to find out all these key constraints and key pieces for the development sites such as this. So if you're wanting to find out about developments or find out about new land opportunities, you can use Landstack absolutely free today. So there we've just gone into a quick bit of detail on how to avoid buying the wrong plots of land. Now, I wanted to raise this because just look how rife it is. If we just have a quick scroll down, we can just see that there's just so much of it going on. And it's something that I feel like auction houses should refuse. They should say that we're not doing it, we believe it's unethical. And I think that it should be prevented by landowners and other solicitors, or perhaps even government policy as well. Because if you are to get planning permission and title split and sell them off as self-build, that's absolutely fine. But buying a plot of land that you believe doesn't have development potential and selling it off with this hope and this dream, I think is just false advertising, false representation, and I think it should be made illegal. So let me know your thoughts, and if there's anything that you'd like me to cover in future videos, comment down below.